Today we're here with my good friends Corey and Shanna Leroy. These are actually people that I met because they moved into my neighborhood, and I'm like, these are the coolest people ever. They're so funny, so fun. And if you don't follow them, go follow them. Tell me your handle.
It's the Leroys.
The Leroys. Mm-hmm. Some of the funniest videos. I mean, you have so many awesome kids. This is something I thought about earlier this morning that I have to say. Your kids are abnormally polite. They're abnormally polite. I remember I used to drive Kesley. This is before she had her driver's license. I used to drive Kesley to tumbling with my kids. And for a teenager, they're usually on their phone, or they're usually like, oh, yeah, okay. And they don't really respond. And the whole time she was just staring at me, engaged in conversation, always said please and thank you. These are things you might not see online that I have to say. And then sweet little Reese has a piece of my heart. That girl is the sweetest thing.
She really is.
Oh, she's the kindest little girl. I love her. I love all your kids. But Reese is just,
Yes.
Anyway. So you guys are obviously doing something right. As parents and as people, I know you guys, you're very, very good people. So you have a huge following on a lot of platforms, actually, because you have hilarious videos and interesting videos and stuff. Sometimes people don't see who you really are because, funny videos, you're just, doing your thing. But I want you guys to tell me a little bit. I remember a while back you'd posted something about the mean things that people have said. And not that I want to give any focus to that, but I
could go all day about mean comments.
Go ahead.
I feel like it's kind of lightened up over the years, but I also feel like we've had, I think you really do develop like thick skin after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing I haven't heard. I mean, I'll be honest, I've heard it all. Attacking your appearances, attacking your children,
Which you're gorgeous, so I don't even know what they would attack.
Well, thank you, but like they just, I mean, everything. You have to remember, like, they see like such a small percentage, and that's the hardest part. Is sometimes you let it affect you because, you're like, well, is everyone else seeing this too? But then you have to remember at the end of the day, these people don't know you, and the ones that do know you, like your family, and I think that's what I've come to a reality, like especially through like the COVID time, I've come to the realization that like what really matters is what's in front of me, and that's my kids and that's my family, and those are the people and the things I need to focus on, and the people who really know me know me, you know what kind of person I am.
All of us who know you have never thought anything even slightly negative because you guys are just such fun, happy, good people.
Thank you. You're so nice.
It happens enough that it will affect you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
After a while of the same things getting said over and over again, or continually, negative comments, it starts to affect you.
And you start to believe what I mean, like attacking your physical appearance. You start to look at it like, wow, maybe they're right. Maybe I do look like that. Or, it's like it totally can affect you. I don't know. I've been trying. Now, I'm not perfect at it, but I have been trying to turn whatever they say negative into a positive. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, well, what kind of day are they having? What's their life really like?
That's a selfless attribute.
So I'm trying to think of it as like, okay, I'm going to have compassion for this person as hard as it is, because that was hurtful what they said. But then I'd have to think, okay, what is their life like? What kind of, are they divorced? Have they lost their job? Has one of their children completely gone off the deep end? Like those kind of things.
We've done this long enough that those people who want to come and comment like that, it goes a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
There's more struggles happening on the other side of the screen that we don't know about.
Right.
There has to be, because who would be so bitter to say something so mean to someone they don't really know?
Yeah.
So we have to be really careful. We, either we'll delete the comments and we don't respond to them. It's just it's not worth our time.
No.
And usually a response, usually a negative goes to a negative and you'll throw it back. And so sometimes we'll write something back that's really positive for them because of it.
Wow. See, this is an example of what I'm talking about. You guys are great parents, and I've seen it firsthand. It's funny because when you talked about your, initially talking to Kesley when you were starting this, I felt this pin in my stomach because knowing those girls, aside from social media, I didn't know anything about their social media. They're the sweetest girls, and all your kids are. I just know those two better.
Yeah.
They're the sweetest, most pure girls, and the idea of someone attacking them, it's like, oh my goodness, And then you guys too, but you know, you guys are adults, but you guys are such good people and always been so kind, both of you. And I want people to know that, you know, not that you guys even care, but I personally want people to know how great you guys are, knowing you aside from social media. So another thing that people aren't aware of when they just look at, you know, your profile on whatever platform is that you guys go through hard times. Like, even though there's these funny stories and they might see, oh, this is a nice house and things like that, you guys have been through incredibly difficult times. And one of the things we talked about before this was you actually lost a child, right?
Yes.
Do you mind telling us
No,
what happened?
We love talking about him. I especially love talking about him because it brings me, like, I still grieve for him. I mean, it's been 17 years, but I mean, he would have been a senior going into high school this year as a senior. And so, like, I do the milestones and I think about it all the time. And that's hard, like, to think, like, what would it be like if you were here, you know? I mean, this was back in 2006 that he passed away. So he was 8.5 months old, and he had a congenital heart defect. And so this is my second child, by the way. So I had Kesley first and then Logan. And so he was my second, and then I've had 3 healthy children after. But so a total of 5 kids. And but yeah, so he was born. We actually had no idea that he had heart defect. So
Even after he was born?
well, so this is what happened. He was born, and then he was only 3 days early, which was funny. But he was 5 pounds and like 15 ounces, which is small for us. I mean,
Yeah.
our biggest baby was like 7'2", but I mean, like, he was like our teeniest one.
Yeah.
And I remember he just didn't pink up right after he was born, so he just kind of looked a little dusky, and so the doctors were worried about immature lungs, and so they took him to the NICU, and they discovered that he had a VSD, which is normal, like where the heart has to close on its own, but that was it. So they're like, oh, he'll be fine, you know, like they did an echocardiogram on him and it came back negative. So like, oh, he's fine. So they gave him some like antibiotics and things. And I think that was the hardest part, is like we walked in, I mean, he's only there for 4 days in the NICU. And I thought, wow, I'm so lucky. Like, I am so lucky that my child's only here for 4 days. Like, I felt like the luckiest mom because I saw these other little babies in there, and I'm like, oh, how hard would that be to have your baby be there
I know
forever?
that very
you know?
well, actually.
Yeah. So and so that was like the best feeling, to be like, okay, 4 days later, I got to bring him home from the hospital, and I brought him home on Easter Sunday. Oh. So, and I remember bringing home in a little Easter egg like blanket, so it looked like a little Easter, and it had like little bunny ears. It was so cute.
So cute.
And so we brought him home from the hospital and we just lived life for a little while, like
Everything
as
was
normal,
fine.
just normal.
Everything was fine. You know, he had the 4 days in NICU, and then he came home and pinked up, and everything was great.
And we gave him this is where we all kind of, I kind of got offended when my sister said this to me, but we were at my parents' house having his baby blessing. He was 2 months old. And I remember my sister said, don't you think he looks like a little dusky? Like, he looks kind of gray, his skin tone. I'm like, that is the rudest thing you could ever say to me. Like, that's so mean. Like, I'm like, well, look at me. I'm kind of like, you know, I've kind of had like just pale skin. Like, I'm dusky. Like, maybe he's my skin tone, you know?
You don't
like,
seem pale to me,
I was like,
But we look back at it now, and he was.
Yeah, he
There
was.
was a little blue tint.
yeah, he was definitely like gray, blue. And I remember, and so my sister actually mentioned it to my dad, who was a doctor, and she said, Dad, don't you think that something is wrong with him? He's like, and even he's like, he didn't want to hear it. Like, he's like, I think he's fine. Like, I think he's fine. We all were just kind of like, we were in denial about it. Yeah. But I really think as time went on, it was meant to be. And I'll get to that in a second. I feel like that really was, we were meant to find out when we did. Because we had so much more time with him, which I'll tell you a little bit about that. But we went to, 4 months into his life, we went to Wyoming.
My parents were living up in Jackson Hole.
Mm-hmm. And they were up there, and so we went to Wyoming, and that's where we got there. Actually, your mom, she also passed away just about 4 years ago.
4 years. Yeah.
And so, yeah, she was great. But like she was actually the one holding Logan, and she's like, she was looking down at his little fingers, and she's like, he looks blue. Like, look at his fingernails. And like, and you know, the altitude level up there in Jackson Hole is completely different than Utah. So like, it's higher up there.
And you said he was about 4 months old at this point. Okay.
And so he was having a hard time breathing up there. so, being higher in altitude.
Higher elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, did I say that right? Altitude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Higher altitude,
Yeah.
lower the oxygen levels are lower, and so he started to struggle, and we didn't really notice it until that night when we were sleeping.
Yeah. So he was, he was
breathing really hard.
yeah, like he was doing these really weird patterns of breathing. It's almost like he was like,
It kind of kept us up. He was sleeping
and
in
he
our room.
wouldn't smile at all when we were up there, which was weird because he was a really happy baby. And so he wouldn't smile, and he would just, and like obviously the discoloration of his fingernails got us worried. And then he was doing weird patterns of breathing. So we didn't waste any time. The next morning, we got up
You
and
called your dad.
I called my dad. He's like, let's get you guys home.
Like, you better get home right now.
And I mean, we could have, honestly, I don't know why we didn't. We could have gone to the hospital in Wyoming, but something just told me to get home. And I'm like, let's just go. And as we were driving to go back to Salt Lake City, I noticed he was pinking up as we were, like his coloring was coming back.
Yeah, elevations again.
And you could see him start smiling, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we ended up still taking him to the hospital, and while we were there, our pediatrician hooked him up to a saturation monitor, and got his saturation levels, and he was 50s.
Yeah.
Oh,
50s. When you should be at 90 to 100 and 100. So anyway, he was just like, oh my gosh. He's like, Shanna, I don't know how. Like, we got to get like an echocardiogram. We got to do like some EKGs. Like, they're like starting to panic. Like, they pushed me off to the side, and then he started screaming. And that was another thing too. There was one time when we were at home, and like I said, I just didn't pick up on this at all. And he got up in the middle of the night he was just screaming and crying, and I couldn't get him to calm down. And I noticed he looked blue, and I couldn't calm him down. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it's like I was trying really hard to calm him. Like, so as soon as I was able to nurse him, I knew that would calm him down. But while we were at the hospital, when the doctors and nurses kind of came in and kind of scared him a little bit, he was 4 months old here.
I mean, can you imagine all these nurses and doctors running around you, and your parents are nowhere to be seen?
Yeah.
And
they came in.
He was scared. You could see it in
They
his eyes.
came in and pushed me aside, like, you just stand back. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I was just like, what's happening? Because they're like, they started panicking, and I'm like, and I saw that he was going blue, and then you could see his saturations drop. Like, he was in 20s, and like his eyes roll in the back of his head.
which you can just die from.
Yeah. And that was freaking out about that. I'm like, let me calm him down. I can calm him down by nursing him. I can calm him. Like, they wouldn't let me. No. We got to get him, so they sedated him right away. And then they actually ambulanced him up to Primary Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
And so we were in American Fork Hospital, and they ambulanced about 45 minutes to Primary Children's. And so I was in the ambulance with him, and then Corey followed us up in his car. But we got there, and
so those were blue spells that he was having.
yeah, they're called blue spells.
What are you guys thinking at this point? You're driving behind the ambulance that has your wife and your baby in there, and you're watching your baby in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like such a stupid question, but
No.
what are you feeling and thinking right then?
I honestly was just thinking, like, please don't be anything too serious. Like, I think in the back of my head is I didn't even think heart. I honestly didn't even think heart issue. Like, I honestly thought,
I think as parents, naturally, you kind of like, everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be okay. You kind of keep that hope, like, okay, everything's gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And these were blue spells that he had. So the first time at home, when he started crying like that, it was kind of uncontrollable, and she was able to control it by nursing him.
So we're driving in the ambulance, and then we get there, and he disappeared. Like, I all of a sudden they're like, stay here, and I'm like, okay. They're like, the social worker or something.
Which for us as parents was scary. Yeah. It's like, well, what are you doing? You won't even let us be
And
a
you
part
just
of
want
it.
to hold your baby.
Yeah.
But we had to remind ourselves. In fact, her dad reminded us. He's like, this is a primary children's hospital, and their main priority is that child.
Yeah.
And so they had to do everything they could.
Yeah, so I stayed there, and she said, there's a social worker that will come and be with you and talk to you in a minute. I'm like, okay. And then Corey drove up, and I as soon as he got there, I mean, I'm just bawling my head off because I hadn't heard anything. And then all of a sudden, maybe a half hour after you got there, a doctor came up to us, and she's like, wow, he is very lucky to be alive. And I'm like, what? They're like, how, he's 4 months old? And I said, yeah. And they're like, they actually gave him a name in the hospital as the miracle child. They called him the miracle baby because they're like, how on earth is he still alive? Things they're like, this is a miracle. Like, I don't even know how he's living. And then,
And it
Crazy. It's
temporarily
like
worked.
God was giving you this time with
Yes,
him. Like, I'm going to
yes.
show a little miracle, you know?
yes. And so when the doctor came and told us that he had those combinations, we're like, what? Like, I just remember we were both in disbelief, and they're like, well, he needs to have emergency surgery, and you're going to meet the surgeon, and he's going to go in tomorrow. And
Yeah, it was within 24 hours.
yeah,
he was in
we're
open
like,
heart surgery.
we just looked at each other like, well, okay, what do we do? And, you know, like we had no idea what to expect from this at all. Like,
And we were young.
we were young.
Yeah.
I was 24 and Corey was 26. We were just so young. And so we had no idea what to expect from all this. And then, so he had a surgery, and we thought everything was like, you know, they went through the 2 weeks in the hospital, I think, and he was able to come home. And then he
It
spent.
was great. The
was
surgery
great.
went great. They
And that was the
they
expectation that you
fixed
had.
both. They were
Yeah.
able to fix both conditions,
Yeah, they fixed it, and he did say,
or we thought.
well, yeah.
So they did. They were able to fix the problems with the heart at that point. And so he pinked right up. He started to heal up really good, and to the point where he can go home. He's doing awesome, which he did awesome.
So yeah, like we brought him home, and 7 weeks later, we started noticing some of the
He started
symptoms
to
coming
pink up.
back.
He started to blow up again.
So he did
But
that.
now you know what to look for.
He had blue
But
spells.
the problem was they fixed the heart.
Yeah,
Those issues weren't there anymore.
it wasn't the heart; it was actually his veins.
So we had to go back up, and they had to do more.
They discovered
echocardiograms.
that what happened was the veins developed scar tissue, and so they got plugged up with scar tissue. Right? Am I saying that?
So now they fixed the heart, and now the heart disperses through all your veins the blood to your body.
Yeah.
The veins, they were clogging up. They were creating scar tissue. So the veins that they had fixed on there, they started to scar over. Like anything that is injured, when it heals, it has a scar, right? So they were starting to scar over, and basically the veins were filling in to where it was reducing the amount of blood that could flow through there. And so we had to go back into a second open heart surgery,
Yeah.
and they were going in to put stents in the veins to open them up.
And he's at this point only how old?
6
Oh,
months.
6 months old. And so so he opened him up, the doctor, and he's like, I pushed it as far back as I could. And what's crazy?
He said they were about 2 inches long, the stents going through the veins.
And you have to keep in
open it
mind
up.
these teeny tiny veins. Like, I don't even have anything to describe it to you.
Well, they showed us on the x-rays that they're doing, the echocardiograms, they put ink through it so you could see the blood actually flowing, the dye
Yeah.
through it. And it was the size of a pin,
Yeah.
a pin drop
Teeny.
going through there.
And how
So we had the second surgery, and we were like,
And
okay.
it was the highs and the lows again.
It was so
We
helpful.
went from the low to a high, back to a low, back to a high again. Everything was fixed. He's back home. He's doing great. He's doing awesome.
This is what's crazy is right before
Right about Christmas
before his second heart surgery, this is where I got really angry at Heavenly Father. I was just like, how on earth could you do this to me? And I remember thinking, I was like, why would you do this? And what did I do to deserve this? Like, what have I done? Like, I don't know. I remember being so angry and mad and confused as why he did this to us. And I got an instant thought that came to my head, and a voice in my head that basically said, Shanna, do you think I can that you can take better care of him than I can? And yeah. So but yeah, that was the first time I'm like, okay, then. And what was interesting enough is General Conference was actually airing that Saturday, that day, and we didn't watch the first session. I was so mad, I didn't want.
That would have been the October conference.
And I didn't want to watch the first one, so we didn't even watch the first session. But what was funny is we did watch the second day after I kind of got that feeling of I can take better care of him. And I remember watching and hearing all these talks that were God gives you trials, and even though you don't, these are hardships and trials, and sometimes we don't always get what we want out of these trials, but it's something along the lines of, but God has our best interest at heart. And so I remember hearing that, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to put my faith in Heavenly Father, and we're going to do another surgery, and he's going to be okay. And so Corey's, and my dad came in, and they gave, we just gave Logan a blessing, and me a blessing too, because we were so I was so upset. And then he went and had a surgery. And then when he got out, they're like, he is doing so great once again. Like the nurse and
here's the
doctors,
miracle
yeah,
we
like
wanted.
he's great. We pushed those veins, like we opened up those veins, and he should be great. And even the doctor was really hopeful.
This doctor was awesome.
He was amazing.
He was
Do you remember his name?
Dr. Correttis.
Yeah, Peter Correttis, and he actually, I don't even think he even works
I
at
don't think
primaries
he's up there
anymore,
anymore.
but he was amazing. He was such an amazing doctor. And but yeah, so we went on again and lived our life, and 13 weeks later, right around Christmas,
Leading into Christmas.
after his surgery, and we actually walked in, and we knew, right, that's the moment we knew something was gonna, it was just news we didn't want to hear. In fact, I actually said to the doctor, I said, please don't sugarcoat this. Like, is he gonna die?
In the back of our minds, I think we knew, at that point.
Even though the other surgeries had gone well and he'd gotten better, you actually felt that.
It was just the exhaustion.
Yeah.
We were tired. He was tired.
That was another thing too. Another thing
He
he'd
would always
always do.
straighten his back,
He'd always
yeah.
stretch his back, like he'd arch his back really hard, like because he was trying to get more air. And I think that was the hardest part too. That's how we knew one of the signs that he was coming back, because we could see him arch his back and he'd scream, and so that was hard. But so we were at the hospital, and so we had sat down and had a meeting with.
And I remember your dad specifically came to that meeting.
Well, yeah, and I actually called my dad right before, and this is where it was hard too, because I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm like, it happened again, and it got dead silent on the other end of the phone. I'm all, Dad, and I could tell my dad was like, kind of like upset, like crying, like I could tell, I could hear it in his voice that he was just like heartbroken, and I'm like, are you there? He's like, I'm here, and I could just tell that he's just like, there's nothing we can do. Because I was expecting my dad to have some kind of magic powers, like, we can fix this.
He's the doctor.
I turned to my dad. I'm like, you can fix this. Like, I know you can fix this. Like, you have to know someone that can fix this. Like, do you know anyone else can we try something else? And he's like, Shanna, I'm so sorry. Like, and that was the hardest part for me, is to hear my dad say, I'm so sorry, because I knew when he said that he knew there was nothing more they could do through that, and they actually felt like, okay, well then we want you to take him home and enjoy him.
Enjoy Christmas.
Enjoy him to and just take him home and just enjoy your time together. And I said, well, how long do you think? And they're like, 2 weeks to a month. And so we took him home, and we did. We really did enjoy our time together. We had our daughter. She just played with him.
And remember, we did that one photo shoot. We had a photo shoot.
Yeah, I had my sisters, and this is actually why I got into photography too. My sister's sister-in-law came over and took pictures of us all together. And in fact, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't want to do pictures today. I don't really feel like it. And I'm so glad we did it, because
It was so neat, because he totally just perked up.
like he was just
we
you would never think he was
oxygen.
sick.
We took the oxygen off so he could take the pictures and everything, and he completely just perked up.
He was smiling, and he was so happy.
You go back through. I mean, it's at the beginning of your social media pages, the pictures of him in the red outfit, were those pictures, and I mean, it looks like a normal
Just like
child,
a normal,
no problems,
happy little baby. And he was
just
like,
he was smiling big in the pictures.
Yeah,
And
it was our family party that day. We did our Christmas family party on the 23rd. It was on actually Kessie's birthday, but we all were together as a family, and my whole family was there. And we didn't worry about germs. We didn't worry about anything. I'm like, everyone can touch him, because we'd keep him away from everybody, because we didn't want him with this issue from no, we know he's gonna pass away. I want him to be touched and loved and.
And was he
hugged
declining during this time?
Well, surprisingly, right before. This was
that evening.
Yeah, it was
kind of when-
actually no, it was after
It
Christmas.
was kind of the end of it. Yeah.
So we had Christmas, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. It was actually the day after Christmas that we saw this huge decline. It was almost like, okay, I had Christmas with you guys. I gave you guys a good, happy memory right before our anniversary, right before that time. So the last time we would have taken him to the hospital. He was up all night and he wouldn't sleep, and I was at my wit's end, and I was just crying because I couldn't do anything for him. No matter what I did, I couldn't do anything for him. And so I'm sitting in his bedroom, and I'm rocking him, and I'm trying to just console him. And I was able to get him calmed down. I was nursing him, and I was talking out loud, and I was just like, Heavenly Father, I need to know that you're here. And I mean, I was actually really angry. Like I was saying this kind of loud, like I'm surprised Corey and Kesley didn't wake up because I was pretty loud. I'm like, I need to know you're here. Like I feel like you're just ignoring me. Like you're like you don't even care how I'm feeling right now. Like my son is sitting here. What does he need? I need a sign. Give me a sign or something that like you're here. I need to know that you're here. And then I look, well, then Logan starts to giggle, which was weird. Like he started to fully smile and laugh. And then I looked over on like my door, like there was like this weird, like, I honestly can't even explain. It was just the most crazy thing. Cause like, it was this weird, like blurry light on my door and he was just smiling and giggling. And so I'm like, and I remember I went back to go see if I could see that light again, and it wasn't there later. But I mean, but that's how I just thought that was so weird that I saw it.
Well, and he hadn't been like laughing and giggling.
Yeah,
much
and
at
he
that point.
no, not at all. And so I knew that like something just
In fact, just the opposite. I mean, she was in there because he was crying and hungry, and then all of a sudden,
just
out
start
of nowhere,
smiling, and I just
he's
like
laughing and giggling.
like that to me was the biggest indication. I'm like, thank you. I just need to know that you're here. You're not like putting me off to the side, you're ignoring me, or not, you're not answering my prayers. Like I need to know what's going on. Does he need to be in the hospital? I need to know. And that's when I got that feeling you need to take him to the hospital. So that's when we did. And then, so now we're back to the 26th or 27th after Christmas. And that night he was breathing really hard and stuff. And I actually turned to Corey and I said, I remember saying to you, I said, okay, I'm ready to let him go. I'm ready to let him go now. Like I was holding him, I was looking down, I'm crying, I'm sobbing. I'm like, okay, and that's when I looked down, I looked over at you, and because he was there as I'm holding Logan, and I'm just like trying to hold him like this and calm him down. I'm like, I am ready to let him go. I'm ready to let him go. And then, so as soon as I said that he completely declined. Like I feel like even he felt like, and I truly do feel like, in not my heart of heart, that he felt like he needed me to get there.
It's almost like he was staying there for you.
Yeah, he was like, yeah. I just need my mom to be okay with me going. And so as soon as I said that, like I feel like that's when he was like, okay, I can go now. Because then as soon as that next morning we woke up, that's when I knew that we had to go to the hospital. Because like, I mean, that was kind of like the morning of, like, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. So as soon as we got up, we got dressed and we went straight to the hospital. We brought him in, and he was declining really bad, really fast. And that's when the nurse is like, yeah, like the doctors came in and said, yeah, his left side's completely gone. It's only a matter of time until his right side is gone. We'll just give him some medicine, and we're going to intubate him, and we're going to keep him comfortable. And so you guys come in, and so we had him there for like 2 days, 27th and 28th.
And then, they came in and they did everything they could to kind of make things better. And they had people come in and make sculptures of his hands and little things like that.
Yes. So we had Kesley come up that day, and she jumped up on his bed. He wouldn't respond to any of us.
We made plans for Kesley to come say bye one last time.
And this was crazy because he wouldn't respond to any of us. Like he's intubated. Like he's completely out asleep. And we're like, we love you, Logan. We love you. And we just kept kissing him. And as soon as he heard
Kesley jumped up on his lap and just kind of straddled him.
Yeah, so he's laying, and so she put her legs over, and she's like leaned over and gave him a kiss. And she's like, hi, Logan. And his eyes popped open. Like, and he was trying so hard to like fight. You could tell the medicine was like, he was really trying hard to like fight to see her one last time. Like he loved her. And so, so that was really special too, that like,
that was the last time we saw his eyes open.
That last time. And then she gave him a kiss. She said, I love you, Logan, and gave him a kiss. And then that's when they asked me at the time, and I'll get to this too, but more details about this. But the nurse asked me, she's like, would you like a photographer to come in and take some photos of you guys for like your last few memories together? And I'm like, no. Why would they even ask me that? Like, this is such a horrible moment. Why would I want to remember this? This is the saddest day of my life. Like, why would I want photos of this? Like, this is awful. And I'm like, and I just thought that was so weird they'd even ask me that. But as a grieving mom, then I've told mom, I've got into photography after Logan passed away. I picked it up and I was doing photos, and it actually started doing photos of children who were with terminal illnesses that were dying, because
there.
and so I actually have done several babies passing away, and actually in moments, like I was there with these parents as their child took their last breath, and I photographed it for them and gave them these memories. But I also told these parents, I'm like, you're gonna want them. It's my biggest regret that I didn't have them, and I wish so badly I would have just had it, because like those, as hard as it was, all I have is up in here, which is fine. But I would have loved to have had those pictures.
There's lots of little things we look back at, and it's like I wish they either had the technology that they do now, because you could do. We've seen people with they get a picture of the heart, right?
They get like a picture
frame
of
that.
the heart, and they frame it, and then you can actually get like the sound of their heartbeat, and you can put it inside of a teddy bear, and like you can actually hear their heartbeat. Like, these are really cool things they have now that I would have given anything to have had. And I'm like, I seriously wish I could go through his old records and see if I can just find a printout of his like heart rate, so I can just like make a photo of it and just like frame it, because I would have loved to have had that.
What a beautiful blessing it is that you get to go help these parents who are going through exactly what you went through, and you're not just a random photographer, you're someone who has been in that exact scenario.
And that's what I've said to them too. When I've told these parents, like I've reached out, some of them have been friends of friends that said, Shanna's lost a child, would you be okay if she came and took pictures of it? Like, some have gifted this, and I've never charged for these. I do it for free. Because I feel like it's something that,
for you,
this is something I want to give the parents, because it's something I wish I would have had. And so,
You've got some really good friends that she's taken pictures of their child.
And they become lifelong friends since that.
There's a few of your pictures up at Primary Children's now that these parents have donated to the hospital.
Yes, and so it's been so neat that I've been able to do that and to give them this gift. So I've said to the parents, I'm like, you're just gonna want this no matter how much. And I know my boundaries. I won't even say a word to you. I won't talk to you. Like, I'm just gonna be there snapping pictures. You guys just be in the moment with your baby. I'm not there. Because I know, like, you wouldn't want to be talked to, and like, it's not a light-hearted conversation. You want to be laughing and things like that. I mean, it's a special moment, special time. It's your last time. And so I have made sure these parents know that I'm not there to make conversation. I'm there to take photos of you and your baby, and just to give you guys.
You'll want them one day.
Yeah, you'll want them one day.
That's all you have to look back at.
It's all you have. So I wish I would have had those. So leading up to where after Cassie said goodbye, they took us back to a very private room, and because they knew he was going to die any second. Like, it's moments, honestly. So if we took us back to a private room and took all of his.
And this whole thing is just, it's surreal. You're going through it, and you're doing it because you have to. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be going through this process. And so every time they tell you, it's like, okay, we're going to take you back in the other room. You're just kind of going along.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, it's like, and it's just, yeah.
And people say all the time,
just hard.
like, people would ask us, how did you guys do it? I don't think I could do it. I'm like, I didn't think I could do it.
My answer always is, you do it because you have to.
Yeah. I didn't think I could do it.
If you want to or not, you just do it.
you don't have a choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. And so they took us back to a private room, and then they came in, that's when we had our hand molds made. So we had 2 different hand molds made of mine and Logan's hand. And then we did his little foot. And I actually have those at home.
We've got a little shelf that has all of his stuff on it.
It's my favorite. Like, I just love, and it has one of his hand like this, where it's like, and I used to always stick my hand like this, my finger in, and I'd kiss his little hand like this when I would nurse him. And so I actually would, after he passed away, I would always pick up I'd always pick it up like that, and I would still like kiss his little, like, as if he was here, because I'm like, I just missed holding him so much. So I have all those. I have like 4 molds with this foot, but as the best gift I could have ever been given from the hospital. And then they gave me a blanket, a homemade blanket that someone had made, which is one reason why we
started
donated
donating blankets too.
in his memory every year, because we wanted to give, and I've given everybody a photo of Logan that gets a blanket. So I told them, I said, I would specifically like these blankets to go home to grieving parents who are losing their child, because I want this to be the last blanket they hold their baby in. I want them to see this photo of my son. And I gave them like a little poem that my mom wrote about Logan, but I gave it to the grieving parents. I said, so I mean, this is what I told the hospital, but I told them, I'm like, I want you to give these to the parents that are losing children, because this is something like, this is going to be the last time they'll ever hold their child. But that blanket, the one I held him in for only 2 hours, became the most special blanket to me. Like I wouldn't, I would never be able to get rid of it ever again. So I had that blanket, and right after, so we had the nurse come in, they took out all
right up until this point, everything's just kind of a blur. It's been 17 years. So there's a lot of it's a blur. We remember the Kesley thing, with her jumping on, and then the moment we walked in that room, it's like you can just remember everything. It's like just everything that happened.
Everything. And so they, like I said, they just took out all the IVs and everything. They only kept the morphine in to keep him comfortable. So they kept him with morphine so that he would be not in pain. And the nurse kept coming in and out of the room, left us alone. It was really nice and quiet in there. It was really nice. She just kind of kept coming in, checking his heart rate, walking out, because he wasn't hooked up to any machine, so we couldn't see anything. And I remember specifically holding him, and Corey and I kept passing him back and forth to each other. And that's when I said to Corey, I said, why don't we, we should just, why don't you give him a blessing?
You could tell that things were slowing down. His heart rate was slowing down. In fact, it got to a point where they just unplugged it, so we didn't have to listen to it anymore.
And I told Corey, I said, we could see that he was having a heart rate.
I remember you said, he's like, I think he's ready.
I think he's ready. And I told him, we kept telling him, Logan, it's okay, you can go now. We know all the family, we know, we could literally feel in that room family, huh? Yeah. I could feel all of our family there that had passed on. But I just told Logan, I said, why don't you do me I just told Corey, I'm like, why don't you give him a blessing? And so Corey gave him a blessing, and then he basically just released him. And then within 5 minutes?
Seconds, yeah.
Yeah, after that,
just a few more breaths.
Yeah, just a few more. Oh my gosh, and his last breath, to this day, I'll never forget it, because it was for the first time that he ever sounded normal, because he'd breathe like this all the time. When he'd breathe, he's breathing so fast, he could not have a full you couldn't breathe like that. And so the last time I heard him take his
there are these little vivid moments that you can specifically remember.
And that was it was 6:43 p.m. and on his death certificate it says 6:45, but I'm like, no, I was there. I heard his last breath, and I saw it literally, but he had this sigh of relief, and it was like he could see the other side. The veil was so thin, he could see the other side, and it was almost like he was
it's almost like you could hear his spirit just
just like that. It was the most beautiful sigh. And yeah, that's when Corey and I are that he's gone. And so Corey let me hold him through that, but we just sat there for probably 2 hours. The nurse came in, like I said, and wrote down his time of death, and she's like, no rush, you guys just enjoy your moments with him, even though he's not here. And I remember it was the most peaceful feeling in that room, huh?
Yeah.
And then the nurse came in and said, would you guys like to give him a bath? Even though, and I said, yeah, we'd love to. And that's when Corey's Corey's exact words were, it felt like I can't even get through it.
It felt like the resurrection when they cleaned Christ's body off. Because we were able to go in there with a sponge, clean everything off. Got his clothes, folded up his blankets.
And that was my. Anyway, that was probably the neatest part of the whole thing, was giving him being able to wash his little body that one last time. And so we were really respectful of his little body. and we changed into like a new diaper. And so I think the hardest part was leaving the hospital knowing empty-handed that we had to go home, and we didn't get to bring him home, and like, and going home and like seeing all of his stuff, like his diapers and his clothes, and it was hard. That was really hard, and trying to explain to Kesley like what happened, and that was hard.
How does anyone get through that?
Yeah, I don't honestly. It was the prayers, especially right after he passed away. I felt like we felt so many prayers that we were kind of almost in disbelief. Like, I don't think it took a while for the grief to really hit. Like, I think I was in survival mode, honestly. I remember I went right after he had passed away. I started working on a scrapbook. I just started working on a scrapbook of all his photos, and I just kept going. I tried to keep myself busy. I wasn't even like, I that was another thing too. I guess that was the hardest part. Is right after he passed away, we went home that night, and Corey and I had off times of crying, which was really good for each other, because I would cry myself to sleep. I would cry myself like from 10 to like 2, and so Corey would be like at his strongest then, and so he'd be comforting me. And then he would wake up like 4 or 5 in the morning, and he'd be crying, and I was at my strongest where I was able to comfort him. So like, we had our off times, which I think was good for both of us to be able to like comfort each other. But yeah, that was kind of, and then like the funeral came, and this is another really cool, neat thing. We were at Logan's funeral, and we had Logan's picture behind him in the casket. And first of all, we weren't going to have an open casket at all. We actually told them not to have an open one.
It was just hard thinking of a child.
Yeah.
Like that.
But then we walked in, and they said, "Do you want to see him before we close the casket?" And I said, "Yes." So we walked in, and we saw how beautiful he was. He literally looked like he was sleeping. He wasn't embalmed at all, so he still looked like he'd still look like himself. He just looked like he was sleeping, and I wanted my family to see that. I wanted all my family and friends that were coming to see him like that too. And so we kept it open. They said,
we were kind of surprised by it.
Yeah.
You know, at first we thought like, no, this might be a shocker for people to see a young child like that. But then once we saw him, I think we just kind of knew. It's like,
yeah, we need to have it open. So we had, all of our family came, and Kesley was on my dad's, like my dad was holding her, and there was a picture of Logan behind him in the casket, and then there Logan and stuff, and she kept pointing to the picture, and then Logan, and then my dad would say, "Yeah, do you know that's your brother right there? That's Logan." And she said, "Oh, that's not Logan, that's Logan." And she pointed to the opposite side of where, like, there was anything. There was no picture, there was nothing. She pointed over, like, to the opposite side, like
Logan's over there.
Yeah, like she could see him. Yeah. And so that was reassuring. I felt like, because they say children up until
those two they had a really close bond.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, they were really, really close. He adored her. But
we've got some of the cutest videos that she's posted on social media, and this is kind of how the whole social media started, was sharing his story.
Yeah.
And so back at the beginning, there's a lot of stories about Logan, and then there's even a few clips of Kesley hanging out with him in his crib
and reading books to him,
and there was this perfect installment where she was in the crib, and what'd she say? She's like, "Bye bye, Logan."
Yeah.
She was in the crib, and he was going to bed, and she's like, "Bye bye, Logan." And it was the perfect audio that when we made his video that you see on the Logan story, at the end it shows that, and it says, "Bye bye, Logan," in Kesley's voice.
It was really sweet. But yeah, so there's those things, like, and the grieving after was really hard. Like I said, it was probably like a month until it kind of hit us. Like, it really was like a month, and I think it's different for everybody.
When they say there's stages, there's definitely
and you honestly, yeah, I was in denial 100% of like what had happened, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I really don't have he's not at the hospital. Like, I'm not bringing him home. He's not coming home. Like, what the heck? So
and then you kind of get a little angry.
Yeah, and then so I went through like being upset, and I think things like this can either make a couple or break a couple, and I think because I'm grateful that I had Corey, who was also going through the same thing. So I knew his heartache, his pain. And so we could lean on each other. I think we both kind of just, we didn't blame each other for any of it.
Well, the world always tells you, it's like, well, you did something wrong. You know, you fed him this, or you fed him that, or he's
you
around
ate
this, or
the,
he's
yeah,
around
you,
that,
yeah.
which just wasn't the case.
Right. And then like I said, the grievings of the whole thing, and I would sit in his room still, even though he wasn't there, and I kept his bedroom the same. I never touched it, never touched his clothes. And even till my son Rhett came, Rhett had all of Logan's room, everything. And I just kept everything the same. Not that I was trying to replace Logan or anything like that, but and that's what I say to parents who go through losing a child and they want to have another one. I mean, I got pregnant really quick after losing Logan, and I know a lot of people would say, "Why would you do that? That must have been, you know."
And these are comments that we've gotten. You know, this is where this comes from.
Heartless.
There's people saying they say were you replacing him?
Yeah.
Why'd you have a child so fast?
Yeah.
You know, what were you doing? And honestly, that was the best thing.
Yeah.
That was the best way to just kind of move
forward.
To keep moving that.
But yeah, I would never judge a person for having a baby quick after losing a child, because I've been there, and I loved knowing that on the day of his anniversary of his death, I was able to hold a 2-month-old. I was holding Rhett at 2 months old on the day of his anniversary of his death. So that
beautiful
felt
thing.
so good to hold a baby and to have something to look forward to, you know, through it all. So I mean, be careful how you judge people.
Yeah, you never know
You
what
just
someone's
never
going
know, and people do. We're not sometimes, you know, like, I mean, we just made that decision together that we wanted to have another one, and I didn't want too much of a gap between Kesley and the next child because already there was 4 years between them. I'm like, I just want to, you know,
It's brought us all together really close. You know,
Yeah.
Kesley has a place in our heart just with the bond that she had with Logan.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rhett has a place in our heart because, you know, he's kind of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
You know, a new start.
Yeah.
he really is.
So what advice would you give to someone who is suffering a tragic loss?
My thing is, well, I definitely would have your time. Like I would, and I don't feel like that ever should be rushed. I think if you are having a hardship or you lost a child, like don't ever feel like you have to rush to get, you know, back to normal. Cause I feel like it takes time no matter what. I think as time goes on, and you hear this all the time, it's so cliche, like, oh, with time it gets better. I mean, it really does, but there's still a longing in your heart that you'll never replace. And that's hard, you know, but, I mean, I honestly just say, you know, just do what you need to do for you. Don't worry how other people grieve and how they tell you should grieve, because no one knows. Everyone grieves differently.
Yeah.
Some people really emotionally can't.
It's all right to mourn. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you need to give yourself some time to do it. And your time may be shorter. You know, other people may take longer to recover from something like that, but you got to allow yourself some time. Mm-hmm. I know for me, you know, I kind of put myself back into work, and so that kind of helps me recover. But at the same time, I didn't want to hide it as well through my work. And so I did need to allow myself some time. And then I look back at the whole experience with Logan, and while it was the hardest time that we've ever experienced, it's also been the biggest blessing in our lives.
That was my next question. I kid you not, as you were talking, I'm like, I want to know if this has in any way been a blessing to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything we do now, you know, if it's with the social media and the jobs that we do, it's all of this was based around our experience with him. That's how we grew with the social media that we have, is our story about Logan. And amazing things have happened. We've been able to share these experiences with so many people that don't have anybody to talk to, and so they've come over to us for advice and for help and for, you know, just guidance that they've been able to see through our videos and the content we put out there. And so it's always been so important for us that we keep that kind of family-oriented content so that it can be an example to others. And a lot of the people that come view what we do, sometimes we've learned that they watch what we have or what we do as a family because they don't necessarily have that, and it's something that they want. It's something that they crave to have that, and we've learned that a lot of the people that come watch us they live in divorced families, or they have a mom or dad, or they've lost them, and so it's something that they're craving, and so we have tried to do our best to keep that on a very family oriented content and kind of the positive
thank you for that.
model for that.
Well, this is actually how we started the conversation before the cameras were even rolling. I was saying, I don't think you guys even know what a positive influence you've had on so many people. And then you guys being willing to share something that's such a tender story and open up about something so difficult, I know is going to help so many people.
And that's kind of what we want. Like, I wanted people to see that, like, you can lose a child, you can lose a sibling, a mother, a father, because he lost his mom, and we talked a little bit about that on the channel before. And there is, life can go on, and you can still live a beautiful life. And, of course, you're going to miss them and long for them all the time. But I just want to show people that there is a possibility to be happy again. Like,
Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you for letting us honor Logan's memory. This is so beautiful, and I'm so thankful you guys be willing to share this with everyone.
It was
Thank you
so
guys.
fun. I
We
enjoyed it.
appreciate you having us.